Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag College Show, Week 4. I am your host, Andrew, and joined as always by Alex. We are going to be taking you through all of Week 4's upcoming games. We're going to take a little look at some of the big games from last week. We've got a couple of the little topics. We're going to talk a little bit about Arch Manning. But first of all, Alex, we've had some big news already for college football. Your previous conference that used to follow, the Pac-12, now the Pac-2, has had some big news. It is had 4 new members agree to join. That's actioned in 2026. They currently have Oregon and Washington. That's Oregon State, Washington State that stayed. They're going to be joined by Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State. Seems like you have to have state in your name to join this division.
Yeah, it's a prerequisite to join in the Pac-12 now.
So we said before the season started, we felt like some of the Mountain West teams would be ideal to move over to the Pac-12, try and get it resurgence. It looked like that's happened, but they still need 8 members before July 2026. So still need 2 more teams. So start off, what's your instant reaction on those 4 teams joining, and how do you feel about the resurgence of the Pac-12?
Yeah, it's sort of a thing that sort of seems obvious, but also a surprise at the same time. They sort of shadow dropped the announcement at like midnight last Wednesday. And it seems like a sensible step. Obviously, they had the scheduling agreement for this year with the Mountain West. Only for this year, though, they haven't got it next year. And then they've decided to poach these 4 teams. Probably the 4 top teams out of the conference, with Boise and Fresno State, Colorado State, and San Diego State's all right. And I expect that won't be the end of it either as well, because like you said just now, they need 8 teams to become a legitimate conference. So whether they'll for trying to secure 2 more teams from the Mountain West or look elsewhere. I've seen quite a few teams linked with it, like Tulane and Memphis and teams like that might want to come over from their respective conferences. But yeah, it's sort of I was pleasantly surprised, because I was sad that the Pac-12 was essentially dead, and now it's not dead. They revived it. But whether they're going to be, they're not going to be on the level of the remaining Power 4 conferences, are they? They're going to be more like on a level of a current Group of 5 conference. They won't be as strong as the other conferences, but it's good that the conference and the brand is carrying on. So yeah, I'm quite pleased about it. It's going to cost a bit of money for the Pac-12 though, because they, I think as part of the agreement, of the scheduling agreement that they made with the Mountain West, that if they did poach any teams, which they have done, they had to pay about $18 million each in exit fees. But they can manage to do that because they withheld the media rights from the teams that departed the conference, so they didn't pay them those shares, so they can use that money to fund that and hopefully secure 2 other decent teams.
Yeah, I think with the prestige of this conference and the fact that it's produced championship-winning teams, I suppose there's that thought, because like you said, the teams that have joined, the Boise States, the Fresno States, they've kind of always been on the fringe, haven't they? They've had lots of unbeaten seasons over the years. They've always played well, but they've never been able to qualify for the playoffs. Do you think that the strength of the past of the Pac-12 now gives these teams an edge over maybe like some of the AAC teams and things like that to get into the playoffs? And do you think also, when you look at the ACC, if the likes of Miami or FSU or Clemson, if they decide to move to the Big Ten or the SEC, this might become the next biggest division, because I don't think there's no one else left in the ACC, is there?
No, if the ACC does eventually collapse, I mean, Florida State and Clemson are currently in like a legal battle with the conference about their media rights. They feel that they should be paid more than the other teams because they bring in the biggest revenue. They have the highest ratings. So there's a fair chance that a team that like Florida State or someone might end up in the Big Ten, and the ACC might find that other teams will follow suit, like Miami and North Carolina. And then you could see teams like Cal and Stanford maybe even returning to the Pac-12, which I'm sure the Pac-12 would love for them to do. But I'm not quite sure how long their media deals are running at the moment, or what it would cost them to exit the conference they only just joined. But yeah, I think as we go, it's going to, over the next few years, it's going to become more and more about just Big Ten and SEC, and then the others around it. But the Pac-12, like you said, it holds a certain level of prestige. It's known as the Conference of Champions, maybe more for its Olympic success rather than football, but they do quite well in football as well. But yeah, it sounds better to be in the Pac-12 than in the Mountain West or the Sun Belt Conference or something like that. And that slight level of prestige might bump you up in terms of the selection process when it comes to the playoff.
Yeah, definitely. It might also help. I mean, I hope this doesn't happen, but if it does become like you said, Big Ten and SEC, if it does become a 2-league football league and teams have got to move over to them, I think that gives them a bit more clout. If teams want to leave that to go over there, they might have a better chance. Also, I think my next question was to you was going to be, who are the 2 teams you think? I think you've pretty much nailed everyone I've got on my list. The only one you didn't mention I've got on my list is UNLV. I think they've got a good chance of maybe moving over if they dip back into the Mountain West pot and try and find someone to come over. But yeah, Tulane and Memphis, I think, are definitely great candidates they might try and poach. We'll move on to last week's games and see how well we did and what happened. So the first game up was Arizona versus Kansas State. This was a big one. We said this division, they might beat each other all up. It was run game versus throwing game. The run game won this one. It was 31-7 and at the end of it, and Kansas State absolutely blown Arizona out and cemented themselves as the front runner now to win the division. I did mention that 3-headed beast that Kansas State have got with Avery, Johnson, Giddens, and Edwards at the running game. They all produced in this game. Did you expect it to go this way? I know you didn't, but
no.
What is your take on seeing Kansas State now beating Arizona and Arizona going forward?
I think my reaction is that Arizona aren't quite as good as I thought or hoped they would be. They're a team I like and they're quite exciting at times, but it's not like Noah Fafita played well. He's put nearly 270 yards up, but they couldn't get the points on the board. And they just, like I said, they struggled to contain the game on the ground with Avery, Johnson, and Giddens and Edwards. They had 230 odd yards between them, and it was just too much. I don't think that their run defense wasn't good enough to contain that, and we saw the result of that.
Yeah, it's you say that Fafita, played well. I feel like that so far this season he's not really been himself. It doesn't look like the Fafita of last year that exploded onto the scene and was great. T-Mac had another good game, 11 receptions, 138 yards. But I think there's something not quite right with Fafita this year. It's not really gelling as well as I thought it would be.
It's not clicking like the way the second half of last year's season, they were just, the offense was just firing on all cylinders and they were just putting up yards and points for fun. But yeah, there's something a bit off. They're struggling a bit with the discipline, and especially in the last game, they had quite a lot of penalties, which they're hurting themselves with that. I think there was one drive in the first half where they had 30 yards worth of penalties on that single drive and then finished with like 74 yards of penalties, which they can't do against a team like Kansas State because they'll just take advantage of that, which they did. So yeah, I don't know. I think I just wanted Arizona to be better than they are. It's because they're a team that I like, and we thought before the season that they might be legitimate competitors for the Big 12.
Yeah, they were in my list to compete for it, and I think they're now no longer in it. They're now no longer in the conversation.
They dropped right out.
Kansas State, they were in the conversation preseason when we spoke about it. Do you think with this win solidifies them as the front runners, or do you think this is just expectation and they played a worse team, so still watch out for some of the others coming up to talk about later? But
yeah, I think they're up there, but I don't think they're quite the front runners. I think still at the top you've got like Utah, who we'll talk about a bit later. Utah, and I'm still sort of backing Oklahoma State. as well as a team that I like that might be able to push it. But yeah, I think depending on how Utah get on this weekend, I think if they perform well, they'll still be favourites for me anyway. I'm probably completely wrong again.
Yeah, just Kansas State, real tough team to play. They're real gritty. They really get stuck into games. They're not afraid to play anyone, and that showed. So yeah, we were both wrong about this one.
Interestingly, for that game, though, it didn't technically count as a
it didn't.
Matchup, did it?
Yeah. So if it does come down to a tiebreaker, and in that, this game has its implications, doesn't it? So
yeah, because it was arranged before
they decided.
Arizona left the Pac-12 and they couldn't find a replacement matchup. So yeah, technically not an in-conference game, even though it was.
Yeah, that could be the deciding factor later on down the line. So it could be interesting. The next game up was Alabama versus Wisconsin. We expected Alabama to come away with the victory here. We expected them to win. We thought Wisconsin were going to be good on defense because that's what they are, defense and run game. But, this game was, again, a bit of a blowout, 42-10 to Alabama. Bama, now leading the whole entire league with explosive plays. Milroe getting the job done in the air and with his legs. His knock last year was he was just creating stuff with his legs, and that, throwing the ball wasn't his strength, but I feel like he throws a decent ball, but as well as anybody else in the league. 12 of 17, 196 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground, 14, 75, and another 2 touchdowns. And our boy that we mentioned last week, Ryan Williams, 17 years old, coming up great again. I said they were missing a wide receiver, and this is the guy for 78 yards and a touchdown. Did you expect Alabama to be this explosive and this good against the team that's well known for its defense? Do you think the score is correct in what you saw, or do you think it was a little bit closer than that? Tyler Van Dyke went down injured early doors after starting the game off okay. What's your thoughts on this game?
Well, after watching, I do expect them to be explosive now. They just looked like they were back into proper Alabama form. Milroe had a great game. He was behind an O-line that is back to being fully healthy now. So good protection there. But like you said, some of the throws, that first touchdown throw to pass to Williams was great. Just down the one in the corner on the sideline, it was a perfect throw. And as soon as I saw that one, I thought, okay, here we go. We're going to be in for something here. And they were. And Wisconsin just couldn't keep pace. I had hope for a bit. They were 3-0 up for most of the first quarter, weren't they? And you thought maybe they can hold them a bit. But then, no, once Milroe had his iron, then that was it. Because he had 5 total touchdowns as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Milroe, three passing, two running. So, he was tearing apart on the ground and in the air. And then having to manage him was also had Jan Miller running for 71 yards as well. Having to try and contain that whilst also trying to defend through the air as well. Yeah, it didn't give Wisconsin too much chance in the end of it.
Now, we didn't have a massive lot of expectation with Wisconsin going into this game. We know what they are. We kind of expected this, but Alabama, we'll go a bit more into them. With the way we've now seen them play, and with the fact that we've now said they're really good on the outside, their O-line, like you say, the 5 starters are back. They're all fit and healthy, looking good. We like both. I like both running backs in Haynes and Miller. I think they're both talented. And Williams and Bernard on the outside. Are we now saying that Alabama can go up against anyone, or is this still a case? Now, this is a Wisconsin team. Is this team good enough to withstand, the bigger names, some of the harder teams in the SEC, someone in Ohio State or something like that? Do you think they're going to come up and struggle against them, or do you think this is a Bama team now that's ticked a lot of boxes on how to beat people, and they might be a contender now?
I think we'll get the real test next week. They got Georgia next week, haven't they?
Who I did say
they got bye week. They got a bye week, then they got Georgia. Yeah, sorry.
But I did say keep an eye on Georgia's game last week. I did say keep. They they struggled. They struggled.
They had a slip, and now Alabama are a team that are really getting into their groove. I mean, Wisconsin's is not an easy place for a team like Alabama to go. It's a tough home environment. It's much further north than Alabama are used to going. It wasn't particularly cold, I don't think, on that day, but just a fair bit of traveling for them. But yeah, but they went into it and they just dominated like they were playing at home, like they were playing in Tuscaloosa. So I don't know. I think they're a team that's really, they seem to be buying into what Kalen DeBoer is setting up, and yeah, they're getting their groove, and I think their confidence is just going to build. I think they're going to be approaching games like this one, which are coming up with Georgia. They got 2 weeks to prepare for that. I think they'll come into that full of confidence and thinking, yeah, we're Alabama. We're expected to win, and we're going to win. I think it'll be a close game, though.
Yeah, I do think they've got. I think Alabama's still got some question marks on the defense. They've got. We've said this. They're always going to bring in 5-star recruits. They're always going to have really, really talented players on that team. They're very young in the secondary. You watch it back and you see some people open, and the likes of Wisconsin aren't getting the ball there. So I do need to see them play a better team and see how that defense copes in the secondary against a better level of wide receiver quarterback combo, and see if they can withstand that. But they're going to be blowing the smaller teams out of the water with scores like this.
Yeah, and they won't play a team that plays much tougher than Georgia, I don't think. So I think that'll be the real litmus test for the season. If they handle Georgia, then we know that they're legit.
Well, Georgia are all defense at the moment, aren't they? Taking that from last week, their defense is strong. The offense has got problems. It's wide receiver problems there. They don't seem to be able to get the ball out consistently enough to the wide receivers and put up points, which is their problem. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Definitely one that we'll be discussing. And the last game we had was Boston College versus the Silent Assassins of Missouri, just quietly going about their business, like we said, just creeping along. Now this game was it was close halfway through. It ended 21-27 to Missouri. Missouri were 4 of 4 in the red zone. Nate Noel had an absolute storm of a game, ripping it up at the running back. Burden, who I think is a contender for the best wide receiver in college at the moment, 6 catches, 117 yards on a touchdown. Yeah. It took to the second half where the experience and the maturity of that Missouri team that's been together a little while now with the likes of the quarterback, wide receiver, they've been around a little while, and they just managed to push ahead. And once they were ahead in that second half and into the fourth quarter, they managed it well and put them to bed. This has knocked Boston College out of the top 25 as well, which I think is a bit harsh. Only just losing against Missouri. What's your thoughts on this game? What's your thoughts on the two teams?
Yeah, I was a bit gutted for Boston College. I really like Boston College this season under Bill O'Brien. They really got something going there, and they got a lot of moxie about them. I enjoy watching Thomas Castellanos, their quarterback.
Yeah, he's
he had a really strong, I think, first half performance, but then it just got.
He's trying to do it all himself, isn't he? That's the problem. Yeah. He's probably the star of the show, and you can't do everything all the time, especially when you come up against big SEC schools like Missouri. So I think he's good. I think you're right there.
But when they were trying to chase it, and he was maybe trying to force some throws. He had 2 picks in the game. I think they both came in the second half, didn't they? Yeah. So there's things to work on there, and the Missouri defense that came into its own in the second half as well. So they really managed to shut them down in the second half, and then Brady Cook was good, efficient, and did what he needed to do to put the team up and secure that win. I think that I'm trying to remember how the game finished now. I was watching it quite late because then they have to have a second half stop. They had to stop Boston. Have I completely misremembered that? Anyway, the defense was good. They did what they needed to do to stop, shut down.
Yeah. Like I said, the maturity level really showed in the fourth quarter for them. For me, was good there.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, well, I wanted to take a quick look at Missouri's schedule coming up. They're now ranked seventh. We brought this up before, and we spoke about what you're going to have to do to get into the playoffs and things like that. They've got Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Massachusetts, Auburn. They have got to play Bama, Oklahoma, which we'll talk about later, South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. Out of that, they've only got Alabama that's really going to test them and challenge them, I believe. That's going to be a one-loss team for an SEC school. You know, when you see the likes of Georgia struggling and you see Georgia's schedule that they've got, could we see, like we said, the silent assassins? Could we see Missouri sneaking in maybe into the championship game or further? Do you think? You know, what's your thoughts on this? Because they look good.
They do look good. Do they look good enough to overtake Georgia and Texas to find themselves a place in the championship game? I'm not quite sure because we'll talk about Texas in a minute. And Alabama.
They only have to. They only have to beat one of them to get to the championship game, don't they? Because it's two people from the SEC. So
yes, but I mean, like if both Texas and Georgia finish undefeated, but they might lose to Bama. I don't know.
Georgia's schedule. So like I say, Georgia have just struggled against Kentucky, 13-12, big struggle. They've got Bama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee to play.
Yeah,
you know,
legitimately there could be a loss. I think if Texas knock them off, which they got a fair good chance to, then that could open the door a bit for like a Missouri. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting. One to keep an eye on. Missouri. One to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Because no one's really talking about them, and we said this last season. They quietly went about their business and ended well. And we spoke about them a little bit at the start of this year and said quietly going about the business again. Just keep an eye on them. They could be.
I think that they're up there.
We did just mention there about a Texas team, so we're going to move on to them. Texas, Quinn Ewers goes down with an abdominal injury. Arch Manning comes in. He goes 9 of 12, 223 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had 3 rushes on the ground for 53 yards and a touchdown, but one of them was the big 67-yard rushing touchdown. Looked absolutely fantastic. It's the first time we've properly seen him take a good amount of snaps at the helm as the quarterback. You know, he's been at mop-up duty and spring training and things like that. We've seen him, but this is the real first proper time we've seen him. They're now moved up to the number 1 seed in the poll, first time in a long time. So the polls even think, you know, we saw FSU last year. Their quarterback goes down injured. They're no longer in the rankings. Quinn Ewers goes down injured. Arch Manning comes in. They go up in the rankings to number 1. Quinn Ewers is definitely going to be out for a week. They said then it's week to week going forward. Thoughts on Arch Manning and his performance? The hype is real, I think.
Yeah, it couldn't have really done much better at all stepping into that game. I mean, he did it all on. Wasn't that his first pass as well that went for the touchdown? That wasn't, was it?
Well, he came in the week prior, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, but I mean, in that game, his first pass in that game, wasn't that the touchdown pass, or was that the big run he had? But anyway, it was a phenomenally good performance for an untested quarterback to step into. Yeah, I mean, it was against UTSA, which, I mean, it was an ideal situation for him to step into. But it showed that there's essentially no drop off between Quinn Ewers going out and then Arch Manning coming in. Hopefully it won't be a one-off. Hopefully he'll be able to replicate that kind of production in next week's game. I think is it Louisiana Monroe they're playing next week?
Yeah, they're playing
again. It's another soft opponent, so he could really again step up and make a good claim for himself. in that one. Obviously, he doesn't have the experience that Ewers has, but he's clearly got the raw talent and the skill to make those plays. So yeah, it just cements Texas as a real contender. Whoever's under center for them they're going to look good. They're going to be strong.
It's a big help with how good their O-line is. Their O-line looks absolutely stacked. It's so good. It's interesting to say, like, Arch Manning, we know he's going to play against Monroe. They're 2-0, but they're not going to test Texas. The big thing here is, if it is a couple of weeks, if he does play 2 games, if he is this great player that we think he is, this dual threat as well. He got up to 21 miles an hour on that 67-yard rush. That's like, I think someone clocked it and said that's quicker than Tyreek Hill's ran this season. So when you want to judge how quick that is, if we're just telling you miles per hour, this is high-end wide receiver speed, not quarterback speed. That's good with his arm. So that's really interesting to point. If he has 2 really, really good games, if he plays Monroe next, if he's in for that Mississippi State game, which is an SEC team, which is always tougher to play against, do you think the conversation will happen that he should stay in as the starter? Or do you think he knows his place within this team? He's a mature guy. He knows what he's doing. And he goes, no, I'm the backup. My time's next season. I just drop back down. In you go, Quinn Ewers. It's your team. Or do you think there is that level of, I've taken it on. I've been amazing. I should start.
I think there's going to be a clear thought process in the team that Ewers is the starter when he returns. He's been playing very well as well, and he's got the experience to back that up when they get to the crunch time in the season, when they're into the championship games and playoff and things like that. They're going to want an experienced quarterback there, and I think Arch Manning probably realizes that yes, he's not the starter. He will be next year, quite probably. And yeah, I think it's just going to be a good sort of sample for him coming into next year. It's putting some great some film on tape for him, building up his resume. But I think he will drop back to the bench when Ewers is then. But he's shown that he's got what it takes to step in if and when needed.
It does make you worry that. I do hope Ewers is fit and ready to go for the Oklahoma game in 3 weeks' time, because I wouldn't want Arch to go into a game and struggle a little bit and there be some doubt on him, because he is still young. So I think Ewers, with that experience, I hope he's ready for the Oklahoma game, because I think that's a big one. And do you think when we look at it in terms of what the media and maybe other people think, we look at the betting odds for the Heisman Trophy now. Arch Manning went from 150 to 1 to 16 to 1 just off that short period of time he played, and Quinn Ewers went from 7 to 1 to 16 to 1. So they're both 16 to 1 currently for the Heisman Trophy. Now we think that Ewers might only miss 2 games, and prior to that injury, he was the front runner favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Do you think he can miss 2 games and still win this comfortably, or do you think there's anything in there where people are going, oh no, there's some more money for Arch? Maybe there is. I don't know whether I've lost you or not, Alex.
I might have lost you for a second on the end there. But answering what I think you said, yeah, I don't think either are going to win the Heisman, because I think it's going to whisper Miller Moss, but but yeah, I don't see how they could effectively win it when with significant time out from the season. I think this missed time is going to damage Ewers' claim. I think the Arch Manning jumping up in the odds, I think, is quite reactionary. I think that will probably come back down as time goes on. Not that I'm very good at predicting betting lines or anything like But yeah, I think that will settle down, especially when Ewers comes back in, and I think he'll still be around in the conversation because I think he probably will still play very well. But I think there'll be some other quarterbacks that will stand out just above.
I think it's worth a little dabble on him at 16-1 now. He's dropped out because I think if he does come back a bit earlier than you expected, maybe it's only one game out.
Yeah.
I think he's got a great chance. Well, we saw Jaden Daniels win it last year, and he lost 2 games, didn't he? So, we'll move on to the upcoming games, and the first one's a big one. I'll put it first on the list, so I won't say too much going into it. Maybe I'll have my turn to chat about it after you've said your bit. But it's USC versus Michigan, the big game of the week. There's a lot of big games on this week. It's a good slate this week. USC had a bye week. They're 2-0 against Michigan, now 2-1. The 11th seed versus the 18th seed. Thoughts on this game?
This is definitely a matchup of the week. It's the first proper Big Ten game for USC. It's the first time both these teams have met since the 2007 Rose Bowl, which USC won quite comfortably, I think. But yeah, this is a team that are coming in with a lot of confidence, and they're getting a lot of attention now from the national media, thinking actually, yeah, this is a team that is starting to look legit. I think Michigan are a team that are struggling with their identity a bit at the moment. They've just replaced starter Davis Warren. They've benched him, and Alex Orji is going to get the start this week. That'll be a bit tricky for preparation for USC because he's a completely different style of quarterback. He's more of a running quarterback. There's some criticisms around him whether he can throw or not. But I think yeah. But Sharon Moore answered that and said, yeah, he believes that he can put them in a position to win. But then he's going to have to go up against this revamped USC defense. I think that's going to be the big battle is going to be the two defenses. It's going to be Danton Lynn's revamped USC defense against Wink Martindale's DC for Michigan now. The defense hasn't been as good as it was last season, but it's still something to be reckoned with. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one. But I think USC coming in with the confidence they got. Miller Moss is playing absolutely at the top of his game at the moment. His poison in the pocket's been great. His accuracy has been phenomenal. He's been completing like 76% of his passes or something ridiculous like that. So if they can maintain that confidence and that accuracy, then yeah, I think they're gonna go into the big house and announce themselves as the new Big Ten power. Hopefully, for me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we said before the season started, we spoke about it because you're on with us now, that Miller Moss might be a better fit for USC and Lincoln Riley's offense because, he's more of a scheme guy that can follow it. There's no ad lib, no off script running around. And it seems to be the difference in what's working for you. And D'Anton Lynn as well. I think you were the worst ranked defense last year in the whole of college, I think. So, he's done it. That's a big turnaround for him in what he's done. I think the scheme that you're doing as well is fantastic. The fact that, he's letting some teams get the ball and receive the ball, but he's making sure that the players, the defense, are shutting them down quickly. They're not getting beaten over the top, and their infield tackling's absolutely superb at the moment. So, you got with the turnaround of that defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've completely limited the explosive plays they were giving up like they were last season. Tried to reduce having defenders, or especially in the secondary, with just one-on-one matchups, trying to make those open field tackles, which was not good last season. It's more about applying pressure to the opposing team. One area they could still work on a bit is the run game. I think that they're still susceptible to that a bit. I think in the past couple of games they've given up like four explosive runs against you at LSU, and then 4 again against Utah State. So that's runs like over 10 yards. So they need to really focus down on that and not allow Edwards. Which Edwards is it? Is it Dylan? No, Donovan Edwards is the Michigan running back. Yeah,
I think is it Mulligan? Is the
and Mulligan as well.
He seems to be taking the Blake Corum role.
Yeah,
it's I think he's a big back. He's going to take the 3 down backs, and you're going to get Edwards in for the change up plays there. So yeah, it could be interesting. I was trying to get this. Yeah. Mullings, not Mulligan. Mullings.
Come on, there we
go. So yeah, he looks good. I do think this is a tough time to play Michigan. I do think you've got the confidence, you've got the team. It seems to be working well. But this specific week, the change of quarterback, the move maybe to running the ball a hell of a lot more and getting back to what they did last season of just running it, might be tough. But I think I think Miller Moss, like I said, he's just proven that better clinical passes in the big times. It's interesting to look at the fact that when you looked at the defense for Michigan in the last couple of years, that they've only blitzed on 29% of their plays. They're now blitzing closer to 50%. So Wink Martindale's obviously got a different vision and scheme for that defense that they've had that was winning. So I think with that, taking that into consideration, how well Miller Moss has done against the likes of LSU when he needed to pass and he completed them, I think USC get this one. They're 5.5 point favorites, and I think they go and win and get their first Big Ten win.
Yeah. Yeah, of course I agree. I think USC going to win this one. I'm going to pick them. Obviously,
do you think they cover the spread? 5.5 point favorites? Do you think they do more than that?
Yes, but not by much.
Maybe I can see them winning by 10.
Maybe 7 to 10. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe like a 27-17, something like that. Do you think that could, or do you think that's too high for this game?
No, I think it's going to be similar to like the LSU match. I think it's going to be a similar sort of scoreline there. So yeah, like a 27-17, 27-20, something like that.
Our next game up is one that I will be keeping an eye on. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Tennessee at the moment. So that's Tennessee versus Oklahoma, the 6th seed against the 15 seed. It's another ranked matchup that we've got. It's Heupel versus Venables. A lot of chat about this. I was going to say my bit, but I'll go into you first, and then I'll have my opinion second. How do you feel about this matchup? It's two teams. Well, I feel like Oklahoma came into the season with a bit more hype than Tennessee, and Tennessee seemed to be absolutely putting all the critics to shame and look like contenders.
Yeah, they look, especially offensively, they look ridiculously strong at the moment. They've been just scoring points for fun. I think it wasn't like Nico Ama, like I butcher his name. Yeah, he's only been needing to play like half a game, and I know they haven't played any big opponents yet, but yeah, he's still with him not playing full games because they've not needed to. They're still putting up like they've outscored opponents like 191-13 over 3 games. So they're scoring points for fun. They
haven't given up a touchdown yet either. They've given up one field goal.
Okay.
Or did they give one up against NC State? I can't remember.
I think they did. Did they? Because they conceded 13 over 3 games, so they probably did.
Yeah, they must have given up one against NC State.
Yeah. But yeah, and like they're outgaining opponents by 478 yards. It's just like, yeah, they are an offensive juggernaut at the moment. They're going to come up against Oklahoma, which are sort of going in the opposite trajectory. They haven't managed more than 400 yards of total offense in the game yet.
Surprising. I thought Jackson Arnold was going to be a lot better than what he has been. He struggled a little bit. They let Dylan Gabriel walk out the door for Arnold to become it. And yeah, you're right. The offense has struggled, hasn't it?
Yeah. So, but I think they're going to rely a lot on their defense in this game, and they're going to need them to be strong. They have managed to, I think, 10 turnovers so far, Oklahoma this season, and so they're going to need to try their best to get the ball off of the Vols. Amalei has only had 2 picks, I think, so far, hasn't he, this season? They're going to need to try and generate a few more. Basically, they're going to need to stop them scoring because they're scoring on pretty much every drive, aren't they, at the moment in Tennessee? And if they don't hold them back for at least a couple of drives, I think they're gonna lose track of them quite quickly. Unfortunately, it's in Oklahoma as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Ilimai Alava's first road game, isn't it? He's played 3 at home so far. So, and it's at Oklahoma, which is a tough place to visit. So, I think that might play in his mind. I think they've got to Heupel's got to keep the playbook simple to settle him into this. Don't want him throwing any because if there's an early turnover, which could happen with the noise, that might unsettle him. So, I think they do need to get this playbook right, but. Equally, I think he's better than Hendon Hooker, and I loved Hendon Hooker. And I think this team overall is even more balanced than it's ever been. That usually you just see them coming out and beating people through the air and destroying them. I think the Sampson and Bishop have looked great at running backs. Has been fantastic at quarterback. Their defense looks really, really strong, led by James Pierce, who's going to be a first-round pick in the future. So, yeah, they only lost 2 games under Hendon Hooker, and that was against Georgia and South Carolina. So, and I think they're more well-rounded as a squad this year. So, yeah, Oklahoma, you say the defense needs to play well. Coming into this season, I thought their defense was going to be where the question marks were, and their offense was going to be clicking. So it needs to flip, which I don't think it's going to quite. And I think Tennessee -7 point favorites. I can as long as Ilimai doesn't turn over the ball early. I think Tennessee rolled them and put points upon the board against them.
Yeah, I think that's going to be right. I mean, they're first in the country in points scored at the moment, and they're only 3rd ranked in points allowed. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough one for Oklahoma, I think. But yeah, I think it's going to be quite a significant Tennessee win.
Again, you think
I'm right? I could be completely wrong. It could be like the Oklahoma defense absolutely stifles them, and then Oklahoma just have an all-out offensive game or something at home because they've got a good running back as well, haven't they? Oklahoma, Dylan, what's he called? He's Dylan as well. He's got like 9 touchdowns already. Or am I thinking of the Tennessee one?
I'll have a quick look.
I'm getting myself completely confused on running backs today.
Well, Arnold was their top rusher against Tulane. Box score. You'd be looking at Barnes or Tatum. Neither of them really had big games against Tulane.
What have I written down? Dylan Sampson already has 9 touchdowns.
Plays for Tennessee. I've already mentioned it.
Yeah, what are you talking about? I'm getting completely
Sampson's had. If they weren't blowing out the team last week, then he would have probably stayed in for another 100+ yard game. I think the first 2 games he had over 100 yards, getting the touchdown. And Bishop came in because they rested a lot of their starters, and he looked phenomenal as well. So I think Sampson actually did go over 100 yards. Actually, that's a quick look. He's had. So he had 124 in the first game, 132 in the second game, and then against Kent State, I know he went off and Bishop fulfilled the rest of it, but he had, before he went off, 101 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, it's that's what I mean. It's not just Tennessee aren't just throwing the ball and beating people in the air all the time. They've got that run game going. So, like I say, I think this is the most dynamic and well-rounded Tennessee team we've seen in a long time. So they're not as predictable as what they were a couple of years ago under Hendon Hooker. So Yeah, it's going.
Yeah,
We both on the Tennessee side of the.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to pick against them, I think.
We move into our final game. Our final game is what I would say when we were talking about this before the season started. It was my favorite to win the Big 12 over your favorite. So we've got Utah going up against Oklahoma State. We've already mentioned, we mentioned this before we came on. Cam Rising versus Alan Bowman. Cam Rising, 25 years old. Alan Bowman, 24 years old. Combined age of 49 years old. That's just mental for college football, really. What's your take on this game? Are you still hot for Oklahoma State? You know, Ollie Gordon struggled through the first lot of games. Are you as confident as what you were going into this one?
Not quite, no. Because like you said, Ollie Gordon's been having a bit of a rough time of it so far. He's only averaged about 3 yards per carry over the last couple of games. So his production needs to be a lot better than that, because they leaned on him a lot last season. He was basically carrying the team last season. But saying that, I think a lot of teams' tactics would be to try and shut down Ollie Gordon, shut down the run game, and force Bowman to throw. So I apologise for the noise. Can you hear that in the background? The kids are playing the music, toys.
Yeah. Added entertainment in the background. Yeah. Live music now.
Yeah. But no, they're forcing him to throw. But he's playing some of the best football he's played so far in his career. He's on like 320 yards per game at the moment, and he's only thrown 1 pick. So he's been really, really solid for them. So yeah, if somehow they can get Gordon going, then I think they're going to be tough to stop. If Utah managed to shut him down as well, I think.
Well, what we do know about Utah is their defense is always really, really strong. Yeah. They're a tough team to play. They're strong. They're gritty. They battle against anyone that they. Over the few years, they've been a team where you go there and you go, we're not going to score many points against them, but we can win it. But I think when you look at what they've done in terms of Utah as a team, and they've come from the Mountain West, which they won. They then went to the Pac-12 and they managed to win that a few times. And now they've come over and they've got another chance to win a different championship and maybe qualify for the playoffs. Cam Rising is the key to this one, isn't he? I believe. You know, Cam Rising is a phenomenal college back that's struggled through injuries throughout his career, which is why he's stayed there for so long. He rested last week with a finger injury.
Yeah, he's hurt his hand, his throwing hand as well.
Throwing hand, it's just a finger on his throwing hand, and they rested him, thinking that they'd be fine against Utah State. So he's good to go for this game. And I think if he is good to go for this game, he's going to be the difference maker. So you've got an absolute quality quarterback and a quality defense going up against a team that struggled on offense. And, you know, they brought back 18 starters. They should be mature enough and connected. And there's just something not quite clicking just yet. Whereas Utah, I think, are a good unit.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State are going to have to really play hard up front. Their O-line's going to be in for a tough time. One, trying to protect Bowman, and also trying to produce the gaps for Gordon in the ground game. If they can't do that, then I think if their O-line doesn't stand up, then I think Utah are going to. Are they? Yeah, I think Utah.
Well, this is the Utah are the 12 seed. Yeah. Oklahoma State the 14 seed. Oklahoma are the favourites in this game at -2.5, -2.5, which I was surprised at. Who do you think's winning this one? You've got to side with Oklahoma State. They were your favourites going into it, sure.
Yeah, but then I think Utah. I think Utah are just going to take it.
I've talked you around to Utah, haven't I? Over the course.
The trouble is, I know what Utah are like, and they, especially coming up against them in UFC, playing them in championship games and things like that recently, in the past few years, they're a good team. And Kyle Whittingham is a coach that knows how to get the best of them, knows how to win in tough situations, and I don't think you can ever count Utah out, unfortunately. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to pick Utah in this one. I think.
Wow, you're siding with me.
But yeah.
I was going with Utah as well. Now, we said earlier in the show about this division and Kansas State being front runners. This game's got a lot of implications. Do you think whoever wins this one is going to be the main rival now to Kansas State?
Yeah, I think the winner of this game will cement themselves as the front runner, as a favourite, with Kansas State as challengers. They have Kansas State got next week. I think they've got quite a big game, haven't they?
It's a game of who can get it up quick enough.
Yeah. Making a trusty magazine. They've got.
Well, so they've got BYU on the 26th,
BYU. Yeah, they've got BYU.
And then they've got Oklahoma State.
Oh, then they've got Oklahoma State, and that's it, yeah. Yeah, they don't play Utah this year. Yeah, I think the winner of this will be front runners. If Oklahoma State lose this one and then Kansas State manage to beat them when they face each other, then that'll just put Utah and Kansas State as the top two teams in the conference. But you never know. We might be wrong again. I might be wrong again. And Oklahoma State.
Well, we've agreed on all three of them. So
so we're either both going to be right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as always, after I've gone through my three big games, I always like to ask you what you've got your eye on. Alex, which games, apart from these, have you got on, and which player have you got your eye on in week 4?
I mean, most of my focus is on the USC-Michigan game. I'm not going to lie there. But I think that the interesting games. I mean, Missouri have got an interesting one against Vanderbilt. I think they should win that quite easily. But I think Illinois and Nebraska is going to be.
I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Rayola in that one against Illinois. We mentioned Nebraska when they played Colorado, that if they go on a bit of a run, you're looking through their schedule and going who they're losing against. So it's an interesting.
But I think Illinois are a team on the rise as well. They're playing some very good football and some very good defensive football at the moment. I think that's going to be a tough battle, I think. But I think if Nebraska win that, then they'll again be considered not a top team in the Big Ten, but as solid sort of contenders. That one's in Nebraska, isn't it? So yeah,
at Nebraska, yeah.
At Nebraska, yeah. Okay, but yeah, that's the other one I'd be looking at this weekend.
I've obviously got my eye on Ohio State against Marshall to see whether they can shut some teams out again. I think from watching it, I don't think anybody's even made a trip into the red zone yet against Ohio State. So, I wonder if they can keep it going. I was just trying to look down to see if Syracuse, are they playing this week? I don't think they are. Got my eye on Syracuse anyway. Oh, they are. They're playing Stanford. I've got my eye on Syracuse.
Okay.
Stanford at Syracuse. It's a Friday fixture. That's probably why I didn't see it. This is the new Friday fixtures. So, I've got my eye on Kyle McCord and Syracuse. I think people aren't talking about them. People aren't noticing them, and they're again quietly going about their business and playing well. So, I definitely have my eye on that game as well. I know it's not a big game for everybody else, but if they go unbeaten, there's might be going to be a discussion possibly if they can get that last spot. But I think that's the game to me. You highlighted it. The Nebraska game's one, the other one you're watching two ranked opponents again. So we've got a lot of ranked teams going up against each other, which is a lot better than last week. So it'll be a good week. Obviously, good luck to you and your USC, because I can't think of anything better than watching Michigan lose as well. So I'm rooting for the Trojans as well in this one. Might dig out an old Trojans hoodie or something I've got nothing about from when I went on holiday to California a few times. So it'll be a real good one. But thanks for joining me as always, Alex. Thanks up to everybody's teams. We will be back at the same time next week to go through it all again. Until then, keep it with the franchise tag and see you very soon.